Ooh, yummy.
Welcome, welcome. Today I am so excited and so honored to have my friend and peer, Miss LiSara, here today. And LiSara is a Forbes featured entrepreneur, healer, and vocal channel. She hails from a rich ancestry of both medicine women and civil rights educators who worked with Martin Luther King Jr. in the 1960s. I did not know that prior to reading this, so very cool, and I want to hear more about that. Global audiences as large as 15,000 have witnessed her dynamic multilingual live performances. LiSara founded Sexy Sound Healing, SSH, a platform for spiritually led women and femmes to experience their divinity, sensuality, and prosperity through the power of sound healing and community. LiSara, I'm so grateful and excited to have you here today. And to start, I'd love for you to, in your own words and storytelling, to start with sharing some of your story and what led you to sound healing and how that led to where you are now. And I'll let you take it away.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for having me. So excited to see everyone, to hear everyone. I know this will be formatted in various ways. It's really funny actually how I got started in sound healing. There is a story, like a proper story, so I'm going to tell you. And this story begins at a Labor Day party some years ago. Now, if you can imagine going into a house party, it's like a holiday, people are gathering. So it's a friend of mine. This is in the San Francisco Bay Area, East Bay in Oakland. I get to this house. In this house, there is the most random collection of humans plucked from every echelon in society. Like there's no clear, one type of human. And everyone was talking about this and got there like, wow, like it's really interesting people. Just because, in high school when you go and there's like the jocks sit here and the blah, blah, blahs are over there. It was just truly the most eclectic, diverse group of humans like ever. just different types. I mean, I'm surprised everyone there spoke English. Like it was just the most interesting, surprising group of people. So anyway, so I'm going around enjoying myself, eating good food, of course, meeting lots of different types of people. And I did not know this when my friend invited me, that this was actually an emotional Labor Day party. And so what wound up happening was a few hours in, my friend and her partner at the time were facilitating this. They had everybody gather in this massive, living room, family room space, this beautiful home, like overlooking the bay. It was amazing. But anyway, everyone gathers into this space and they begin to open a circle and they invite people to share, they contextualize. This was pre-pandemic. But they contextualize, right? Like you might be feeling something right now. This is a space for you to openly share. And they specifically said, we won't call on people, but if you want to share, we'll give you a minute to just kind of air out anything that's been going on for you. So long story, a little shorter, people begin sharing, probably about 4 to 5 people in. And I'm just sitting there on the floor, just, listening to all these people. And all of a sudden, I get this like message just hits me and it's like, channel sound for the room. And I remember being like, what? Because until that point, I had never done that. I did not know what that meant. I just knew that something was asking me all of a sudden to channel sound for the room. And so probably less than 2 seconds after that message comes to me, the facilitators who specifically said they would not call on anyone, they were like, oh, would you like to say something, LiSara? And I'm like, wait, I thought we weren't calling on people. I said, no, it's okay. Clearly, this was something divinely orchestrated and I'm supposed to do something right now. And so I just remember saying that I did not know what was going to happen, but that I was asked to channel sound. And I closed my eyes and I began to vocalize something of singing, something of frequencies and sounds. As I began vocalizing, making these sounds, I started receiving information about people in the room, these people I had never met or seen before in my life. And it was powerful and palpable, but my eyes were closed. So I was just very internal and feeling all of it. And then I remember saying at the end, because I could feel this grief coming through, I remember saying, this is for those who have grief, or who are feeling grief right now. And when I opened my eyes, I could see who it was for, because there were just red faces with tears streaming down in these different pockets of the room. And it was a moment that I know every person who attended that party will remember, because it was a palpable energy that, again, connected all of these people who literally would have never otherwise probably met. And I found out later, actually meeting people, their stories, and some folks from the community who had passed, and people who were really holding a lot of grief around it. But what that led me to understanding was that I had a gift of perceiving people's energetic fields and channeling sounds that could support their healing, their release, their clearing of emotional and energetic blocks. So that is actually what got me into sound healing. I wasn't playing bowls and the instruments before this. It is actually through my voice that it began. And so now I blend this vocal channeling for clearing with the instrumentation that supports, we can get into the science in a second, that supports a full holistic experience for someone.
That's so beautiful. And with that, do you have a background in music and or that intuitive channeling that you're kind of like, oh, I need to say this thing and being able to trust that? Is that part of your background as well? Or was that kind of like what kicked off all of this for you?
Oh, that's a great question. So I do come from a family of, intuitive. So, and it's funny because it was totally unspoken. No one would say this, but me growing up the youngest in this family of mostly women, I just remember internalizing this kind of unspoken, like, oh, of course we read each other's minds and see the future. We're family, No one ever said that to me, but I just remember soaking that in as a kid. Like, there were just intuitive things that happened and nobody communicated well. Oh my gosh. But good thing that we could read each other's minds. So that poor communication, that's actually probably what led me to studying to be a linguist. So my academic background, my graduate degrees are in linguistics. I did perform as a musician for a couple of years before this. So I did sing in a very different context, write the song first, practice the song, then perform the song. But no, I had never specifically had this intersection show up of do this intuitive thing with your own music, or not your own music, with your own voice, reading other people's energy in this way. So
it's so beautiful. I love that. And for those that may be new to sound healing, what is sound healing? What is, and as you call it, the physiology of sound healing? I'd love to hear your take on all of that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I get so excited about this part because even people who do know sound healing and use sound healing a lot, I think there's just this conception that it kind of lives in the quote woo box, or it's just like something wildly esoteric and over there, where these frequencies are actually really working, as you mentioned, with our physiology, with these normal functioning and processes of our body. So if you've never seen a sound healing instrument, I'm actually surrounded by them because last night I was leading one, and so I haven't changed space much. But this is an example of a singing bowl. I have colorful ones that correspond with actually different chakras. So I have 7 here of the, actually I have 8, one for the soul star chakra. But before I jump too far, sound healing, simply put, is the use of sound and the frequencies that sound emits to support healing in the mind, body, spirit. Sound healing is actually one of the oldest, most ancient forms of healing on the planet. Before the pills, before the shots, before all the random thing, whatever, before all these other modalities had come around, sound, the power of sound and frequency was understood by the ancient. And so sound healing has had a beautiful revival in the last few decades with various types of instrumentation that evoke these specific frequencies. So we're not talking about mainstream music on the radio. We're talking about specific frequencies that actually can guide your brain waves into various states of consciousness, so that, for example, subconscious reprogramming can be possible, so that you can release something, so that you can, you know, have an intention and allow it to actually be something that you live by, as opposed to a cute affirmation that you say and has zero integration or application in your life. So with sound healing, many of these instruments can take our brain waves into theta, and theta is where we access the subconscious. There are other forms of sound healing that I do as well that can take the brain into delta, alpha, and even gamma rays. And basically these different states of consciousness are, most of them you actually access every single day. Right now, our brains are in the beta. We're talking, we're thinking, we're alert. When we go to sleep, we experience alpha, theta, and delta. Delta is deep sleep. And when we talk about these brain waves, we're just talking about a frequency, right? Every single piece of energy in the universe is mostly energy, comes in the form of waves. These waves are measured by frequency. So a lot of times people hear all the names intertwined, but I want you to understand waves are measured in frequency or by frequency, and typically in the form of hertz as it pertains to sound. So what's really beautiful about this is that when you consciously go into these different states, as opposed to something you passively do when you fall asleep, this is where you can get really intentional about healing, whether it is releasing physically held trauma, which is super common with people I work with, whether it is, you know, unearthing something that you haven't been aware of, but then finally it's like, oh, that was the thing, and then, you know, and it came to me now, right? Like sometimes we can get in these patterns of like, I'm frustrated, but I don't know what's going on, like what's happening. So this can really bring that self-awareness for you to understand yourself better, to embody more powerfully, to actually experience. So I identify as neurodivergent. So for those of us who whose brains work a little differently, this can also be super powerful in not only understanding what's going on, but then also accepting it and embracing it and learning to work with your own unique neurological patterns. So there are a lot of applications, mind, body, spirit, and it's really cool too. I know I mentioned prosperity as a part of this. So many of the people that experience sound healing regularly over time through our work together actually report more money specifically. And it's something that I don't think is discussed. And so I'm excited to help people really understand the practical applications of this work.
That's so, I love everything you just said. It's so well and beautifully put. And it's something that's interesting. I traveled to India about 10 years ago to go do a yoga teacher training.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see how westernized things are in the States versus when you go somewhere culturally and spiritually and like really getting to the roots of something. And it was the first time I was really introduced to, like seed sounds or the bija in yoga for the chakras, and how, to your point, to what you were saying, how traditionally even Sanskrit originally was the main vowels, and using those different seed sounds, as they call them, to communicate, to heal, to do all of these things. And then what you were saying too about the waves, and if we think of like light waves, or which are energy waves, and seeing how that really is like light energy in that way too. So I just want to touch on those things too of what you're saying. Like it's so powerful. And I think because it's so simple, and because we aren't taught or trained in these things, just the power that you're redirecting people to innately just in themselves, of being conscious and letting that energetic of the hertz and the tones unlock things in people. And I love that you brought up the prosperity piece, because I love seeing this too, where it's like money is frequency and it's like this currency that we have. And so in your sexy sound healing, how is it different from regular sound bath, sound healing, in regards to tapping into your divinity and your femininity and your prosperity?
Oh my God, I love this question. Like, I'm so excited. I also, I'm excited. Okay. Sometimes I'm like, I'm just gonna have my moment where I'm like, yay!
Take your time. Yeah. I'm vibing with you on it. I'm like, take your time. I love it.
Well, it's funny because those of you who know me and have followed me know that it did not begin as sexy sound healing. So it began a little bit differently. And what I realized was missing, and I believe that, and Phil, I would actually love your opinion if you have one on it. My experience of spirituality on the internet, as it is expressed, feels wildly one-dimensional. Like, I'm in my white cloth, I'm in prayer pose, I'm like really calm and speaking like I'm going to hypnotize you with my voice, and I'm just going to show this one side because this is the only way to be spiritual. Oh, right. And what I love about life is that our humanity comes with so many unique, diverse, this vast array, range of experiences that is everything from the various states of emotion to our forms of perception, intuitive gifts, the dimensions that we can live and perceive and understand this world in and through. And I really wanted something that could bridge what I saw as a gap between here's the standard representation of spirituality and here's all of who you are and all of the pieces that get left out through one-dimensional, often whitewashed or culturally appropriated, often patriarchy dressed in a feminine face versions of spirituality. And so sexy sound healing was born out of a reclamation of all of you and understanding all of you as divine, that it's not something needs to be ripped away or torn apart or fixed or broken down within you. It is the integration, the synthesizing of all of your pieces and parts that allow you to experience your fullest self and really to enjoy life more as well. So sexy sound healing, the sex part of this is And I see it actually as an umbrella as opposed to a niche. I think society likes to go like, oh, that's sex, put it over there. But sex is really about essence, the essence of something, the life force energy. And for those of you familiar with the chakras and the sacral chakra, which of course houses our physical reproductive organs, is also the power center that holds our life force, that holds this creative alchemical energy, the energy that got, hello, all of us here, whether because it was a natural conception or something like IVF that was mimicking the process, but it is that alchemical life force, the synthesizing, the coming together, the harmonizing that enables so many things to be born, whether it's us as humans, whether it's your next business idea, whether it's the energy that gets you to your first 6 figures or your next or your 7 figures, whether it's the, movements that we have seen in society over the last years and people really coming together in order to usher in a new paradigm. So Sexy Sound Healing, our platform, is a space where you can come to experience, I'll say regular, because there are many types of sound healing. I'll say that as well. And I actually have a typing where you can go in and see what your type of sound healing is, what type of sound healing is best for you. But just to give a few examples, there's the sound healing that you might experience, say if you go to YouTube, where it's like, where it's listed by chakras, right? So there's specific for chakras. There's sound healing that is binaural beats. What that means, if you see these words, bi, here's my linguistic nerd moment. Bi means 2, and aural is related to the ears. So they're actually putting different frequencies in each ear, which is why you actually not have to, but you want to listen to that music with headphones to get the benefit of it. And they're actually doing that to stimulate your brain to go into these deeper wave states, delta, etc. Not getting too deep into the science, that's what it's for. There's also, of course, guided meditations, right? Where maybe you're doing a past life regression, or connecting with your inner child, something like this. And so inside of Sexy Sound Healing, we have all of these types of sound healing. And then we also have, again, where I saw some gaps, I was like, well, what about these healing frequencies in music where we're not just trying to meditate and be quiet? What about when we have some sacred rage and we need to let this out? What about when we want to get lit and go party? Like, why do we have to listen to crappy frequencies to party? Like, why can't we have these good frequencies and be like bumping and grinding at the same time? So inside of Sexy Sound Healing, there are audio tracks for whatever your particular flavor is at the time, including, yes, some smooth setting, sexy ass tracks. I will say that there's a lot of pleasure infused into these sound healings. And then there's one other type, and this goes back to that story I shared about the emotional Labor Day party. So we use something in Sexy Sound Healing called weekly doses of music medicine. And what these are, it is me using the channeling gift that I learned, the ability to clear and release and perceive what's going on in someone's energetic field and create a track or create music, sound that supports that release. So every single week inside of this membership platform, I channel both sound and then a corresponding channeled message. So I receive the information as I'm producing sound, and then I'll share, just like we're talking right now, I'll share a message that goes along with it. And these doses of music medicine are specific to that week and the collective, and they're specific to the exact individuals who are part of our sexy sound healing community at the time. So if somebody leaves, the constellation of the energetic field shifts. Someone comes in, same thing. So every single week is different. There's literally nothing that ever sounds like anything else. Even the way I set up ceremonially to channel, like sometimes the instruments are all in different places based on what's happening in the energetic fields of those members at the time. And so these doses of music medicine, you know, sometimes we don't always like the medicine that we're given, right? Like sometimes it doesn't taste good going down. But it's about releasing and clearing what's coming up for release. And again, they're short, always less than 10 minutes. A lot of the people in Sexy Sound Healing listen before they go to sleep, or they just play it in the background. But it's really allowing yourself to kind of be bathed in these different frequencies and these waves and have them interact with your own energetic field in a way that supports clearing and releasing. Because as much as this society talks about having more and calling things in and manifesting new shit, we also need to make space for that. And the skill and the art of releasing, I believe, is extremely undervalued. And it's like a precursor that needs to happen. So when we channel the doses of music medicine every week, it comes with the messages that go into detail about what's being processed, and then also coaching questions and affirmations to support and guide through that week as well.
That's so beautiful. I am so excited to sign up for this. It's amazing. I just to touch back on and highlight some of the things that you said. I really appreciate you speaking into this one-sided online version of people showing up, showing their best face, having a lot of the spiritual aspects, the coaching aspects, and the healing aspects that have been really whitewashed and in the patriarchal version of these things. And I just had a conversation with someone yesterday in an interview that I was in around this of nobody is always in love and light and butterflies and all that all the time. And it's harmful to people to tell them that they're only going to make money when they're in that place or all of those things. And we are so complex as humans, as you were saying, and for us to have the space within ourselves to hold and feel and release certain emotions and integrate the shadows and the darkness into our light and into the love. And I don't know, like for me personally, I've seen so much beautiful artwork and songs and creations that have come from grief and despair and someone alchemizing and moving through that. Yeah. And when you were speaking and talking about the practice you use for how you're integrating your sound healing, it made me think of like when someone's laying there and they have the waves basically of the energy of the music going through any places where they are blocked or have emotional stagnation in their body, that those waves and that energy in your voice and your message are going to tap. It's kind of like if you think of rocks in a pond or a river, and those waves, that water is like going around the rocks. But when it hits in these people, it allows it to vibrate it, shake it loose, potentially have that come up and that clearing. And yeah, I just really appreciate everything you just said about how really teaching and holding a safe space for people to work with the deeper underbelly of themselves and permission to be human in that. Yes. Yeah. It's like we all get to be human and no one's perfect and all the things. And with this is in the work that you do, helping people reclaim their innocence and their desires and their true self and trusting themselves. And I'd love to hear your take and your experience with yourself or with your clients around what that kind of looks like or feels like of reclaiming your innocence, your desires, and your self-trust in regards to the work that you're doing with them.
Yeah, absolutely. So with sexy sound healing, and I might venture to say sound healing in general, but I can't speak for everyone else. I'll speak for what I know, which is what I do. So when we gather, and we gather monthly, so last night was, this is why all my setup is here. I'm like, I kind of want to show it. Is it possible to show? I guess. Oh,
Please
I guess
do.
outside of the range of the camera. How do we do that? Okay, well, here are a few of the bowls. As you can see, the colors. See, I love the colors corresponding with the chakras, because it's like color therapy while having sound waves. But there are other instruments this way and that way. Oh, and this one is one of my new favorites. It's called a tongue drum. But anyway, I could go on. If you're interested about any specific instrument you saw or heard about, let me know in the comments, and I'm happy to come back through and talk about it. But oh, now I'm so funny. Now I'm like, wait, what was the question?
No worries. Thank you for showing us though. And I love the tongue drum. I love like steel drums, and those kinds of drums
Yes.
are super fun. And they have a really great sound. So yeah, just curious around how like the healing work that you do, and how that really taps people into reclaiming their innocence, their desires, and their self-trust.
Thank you. Absolutely. So what's beautiful about being in a space where you are coming inward enough to actually receive and feel the energy of the waves that are emitted, the sound waves that are emitted by these instruments and these vocalizations, helps you tap into self-awareness, helps you tap into, and I'll give examples from what people have shared. Say, if there's something they've been numb to because it was safer to not be in their body. And actually, this is fairly common for those who have experienced trauma and it's still stored in them. Instead of modalities that are like physical touch or talk therapy or needing to go there specifically, being able to feel, just as you spoke about with the rocks, these areas be illuminated and gently massaged, and allow something to release in a way that doesn't cause additional suffering, clears space for really understanding what is the energy that wants to flow through you, what's there, what's coming up. And when we do live sound baths, or even these doses of music medicine every week, there's guidance around what is it that you're perceiving, because we are, as we know, socialized to believe that either intuition isn't real or it's not trustworthy. You might be considered crazy, right, for leading your life in this way. And I see it with business coaches too. Like, you can't really use intuition all the way. You can use it partially, but then you have to make sure you use our system, whatever system I've set up for you, or whatever structure is set up. And being able to come to a place of self-awareness such that not only can you hear or feel that voice or that truth inside of yourself, but you understand how you're perceiving, right? So for example, different types of clairs, people call it clairvoyance, clairseeing, clairaudience, clairsentience. So for those who are empaths, many are clairsentient, meaning that you receive information, not just about what others are feeling physically, but also information about yourself, or just information in general. And claircognizance, where knowing just hits you and you've just got it. Like that message I received at the emotional Labor Day party, it was like, I didn't hear someone speak to me. I felt the message and I was like, whoa. So one, understanding how you actually receive information, what portals or channels of your receiving, your perceptivity are already open. And then two, working with those to learn to trust it, to learn to practice. And I do talk to people about practicing, and I remember my own journey of practicing. And actually, I'll give an example of this. So the first one that was really clear for me was Clairsentience. And I'm specifying this one because I've had a number of clients in the past who have hated Clairsentience. They're like, I don't want to feel this stuff. I don't want to feel these answers or these things coming in. And so I've actually had a number, when I was just focused on coaching, sessions on helping people really embrace this and set boundaries around it, because don't want to feel something that doesn't feel good, right? This is true for my empaths as well. Like having clear energetic boundaries so that you're getting it when you want it and you're not when you're not is crucial. But my own experience of practicing clairsentience was, it was so cool. I was messaging on Facebook, this was years ago, somebody who was in Greece at the time. I'm in California, and I knew her to be, you know, this super connected, intuitive person. So I was asking like, hey, how did you get to know this? Or how did you get to like really build your trust in it? I didn't say those words, but ultimately that's what I was asking her. And she was so cool. She responded like, oh, you know, you just practice. And I can see, she said, I can see you have the same gifts I do. So why don't we practice now? And I was like, you know, question mark, like, okay. And she goes, okay, so why don't you tell me a little bit about what's going on in my body right now? And I was like, oh, what? You know, I'm in California, you're in Greece, we're messaging on Facebook, you know? So as many people I've met since beginning this work, they're like, how do you perceive something through the ether, essentially? But the thing about energy is that it is everywhere, and we can connect to someone's energy field, whether they're in the room with us or not. And this is what I learned in the moment, because I had never done it. I was slightly freaking out. I was like, okay, I got this. So after I had my freak out moment, then I came back to, and here's the thing. The moment I allowed the freak out, like whatever is real for you in the moment, please allow it. Once you've let it out, that part of you has been witnessed, then there's this space of opening, right? Once we've released the stuff that's blocked it, then there's a space of opening. And so after I, you know, was like, oh my God, I'm not gonna do that. Because really it was just a fear of being wrong. Like, come on, who cares? She's a friend. But you know how the ego works. The ego's like, no, it can't be wrong. So let that part go. And then there was space, and information started coming, like a lot of information I didn't know I had access to. So first it started off with feeling physical pains in her body. She's had a lot of disabilities over the years. So I was feeling places that I didn't know. I did know some things about her, but not the depths. And then from there, it moved into emotional pieces. And then it moved into things held in her ancestry, her relationships to, say, her mother, which was a really big one. And then I started receiving images that related to the things I was feeling so that I could describe it to her. And every single thing I said, she affirmed it. She helped and like gave a backstory, or, you know, a sentence explaining like, yes, that's true because blah, blah, blah. And then this is what really blew my mind. Okay, so this was going, I was feeling affirmed and like, oh, cool, you know, this is working. I haven't said anything wrong. The ego. My intuition spot on. This is great. Then a friend of mine, or a new friend who I had met, who lived in Australia. All right, so we've got Cali, Greece, Australia. If you could break the world into 3 section time zones, like we're here. So Australia, this guy messages me, because I had also messaged him the night before with a similar ask. And so he also responded in the moment I was messaging this one person. He responded with a similar, like, yeah, you just practice, right? It's a skill set. You just practice and you develop your trust and confidence in it. And so when he messaged back, I told him I was, you know, kind of tapping into this person. Everything's consensually based for clarity, because there are energy vampires and we don't do that. So so I told him that I was doing this with someone else. Long story short, he then tapped into her through tapping through me, and I was wildly mind blown. Like I was wildly mind blown. I was like, okay, like this is what's possible. Okay, this is cool. This is amazing. And it just speaks to how connected we truly are, and not only to each other, but to everything in the universe. And as you said, money in particular is energy, which is why we talk about currency, flow, these things associated with energy when we speak about money. Also, water, too, streams, revenue streams. And being able to understand, coming back to how sound healing supports this, being able to understand your unique versions of this, your unique gifts that you can build as a skill set, that you can practice, that you can trust, can help lead you to the path that is divinely guided for you, versus what the cool ass coach on the internet who's a millionaire told you is great and has worked for her people, or at least the one she's mentioning, right? Coming to your own, really, as well, sense of peace with why you've made the decisions you've made and where you're guided to go next, and the courage to let go of something when it's time, and the courage to call in something wildly new and different than anyone's ever understood of you. That is the power of what's possible when you trust this intuition. And I actually made a post about this earlier this week, and someone commented like, oh, I don't remember the words, but the sentiment was, it's so hard to trust when you've been gaslit or manipulated out of it. And I want to speak to this as well. And she had also said, if you've never known intuition. And the thing is, it's kind of like the way people approach art. They go, oh, this person's an artist. Like that person's intuitive. I'm not. And the truth is, and this is why we must reclaim all of our humanity as an experience of our divinity, is that being human means you have access to this place within you, period. Even if you've never known yourself to have an intuitive thought in your entire life, or you've never heard or felt or received a gut feeling, which most people I think have had a gut feeling, that's where we start. There's this availability, there's an ability to access this. And the more time you spend, and the more, I'll say frequency over time, actually, the more amount of times you spend allowing yourself to prioritize it enough to experience it, and then practice it, apply it, and trust it, apply it to real third dimension life shit, right? That is when you can really build a space within yourself that then, let's say, alchemizes and creates something that changes an industry or changes your family's life. But it starts with that ability to connect in to your own truth, and then to be aligned in your actions. This is how we manifest things that we want, and not things that we don't. And allowing yourself, as it pertains to desire, allowing yourself to then come to a place of perceiving your desires not as what society might have you believe, as something that you should feel guilty about or not tell anybody about, right? Guilty pleasure. Then your desires become a guidepost, right? When you're connected and aligned with your truth, and you receive through your forms of perception, your intuitive gifts, then you realize that what you desire from this place is simply what's next for you on your path, or what is showing you what's coming on your path. And then you can trust not only the information you're given, but you trust what you want, what you know you want, in a world that tells you not to.
It's so true. And this piece around self-trust is so important, especially, I mean, in the work that I do, I'm like, everybody's experienced trauma on some level if you're a human being in your life. And this piece around relearning self-trust after you've been abused, manipulated, gaslit, all of those things. And there is this piece where people with the trauma can get into not trusting themselves because they're like, in the past, when I trusted a desire, it led me to this place that like it was either re-traumatizing or a pattern kind of a thing. And with that being said, specifically, because I know in the work that you do as well, there is this alchemy around sexual energy. And because there is a lot of trauma around that for many people, men, women, femmes, binary, unbinary, all the things alike. I'd love to hear too how you work with, whether you call it purification or alchemy with the sexual energy, because I think it's really important for people to understand that your sexual energy is your life force energy. It is your creative energy. It is the energy that creates more life. It's natural, just filter or unfiltered, is driven towards more and expansion and life and creation. And when people have experienced trauma in that place, it shuts that part of them down. And that's where the distrust happens. That's where their lack of energy, lack of feeling safe in their sexual or creative expression. And I'd love for you to speak into as well around that with sound healing, with your own personal journey or clients' journeys around how that feels when people reclaim and release and alchemize that piece of them. Because I feel like that's when people like reignite and respark, and they really tap back into living from that life force energy versus being afraid of it, or it's been, abused in the past or whatever. But I would love if you could speak into any and all things around that topic as you feel. Whatever comes up for you in that area.
I'm like, we need a whole new interview. Like,
maybe a second one specifically on that.
Year-long course.
I'm down.
That question. I want to speak to, there was a lot you said. I want to speak to this piece because the piece around accessing it after trauma specifically, because I want, as you're watching or listening to this, wherever you are, I want to give you something that you can work with now as a result of having listened to this. And the way, I'll say the way, quote unquote, in, and when I say in, I mean the way back to the truth of who you've always been, the truth of who you are, who we are as humans, as sentient beings, as creative beings. That is our nature. Even when society says, no, those people are creative and you're someone else, or those people are sexy, those people are hot and you're someone else, right? Allowing yourself to experience this energy in one of its many forms, right? Because there's essence, and then there's form, then there's the way something is expressed. I personally have been really playing with actually various forms of my own sexual expression, and there's some that I'm like, I don't like that. And there's some that's like, ooh, that feels good. And so knowing that there are various forms of expression of this give us different pathways of potentially coming back to and embracing and feeling safe with and feeling excited with our own creative life force energy. One example that's coming to me is a private coaching client I worked with where, she was totally shut down in this place, had addictions related to sex, had traumatic sexual experiences. Just there was a part of her that had desire, right, and liked sex, but it was imbalanced, and therefore she didn't trust herself in this area. And she also had and she also did corporate work, right? So there's this place where like, you must be shut down as a woman in the corporation, look like a man, and then you'll get the job or whatever. Anyway, there was a part of her, and this was our entry point for this person. She had this playful, and I would get peaks of it in the way she would make a joke, or, you know, just like say a side comment. And so we accessed her life force energy from a place of play, and play being, in her case, like the funny, silly joke. Because a lot of times, in order to not go to the scarier place of our full sexual life force energy power, we might present as women as cute, right? Or like funny, or like light. Like, this is an acceptable form of how powerful my life force energy is. Like, ha, I'll just like laugh things off. And so that was how we went in. And the more time we spent, and it was great. We were actually coaching around her business, but there was this playful aspect that not only lit her up when she was just joking around, but it also lit up what she was creating. And so we spent more time of being in this really kind of fun for her place. And then the inspirations and ideas were coming and all of these things. And it was, in her case, and also in my case, I relate to this personally too. I've spent a lot of my life being cute. Oh my God, fucking hate that. People are like, oh, you're so cute. I'm like in my head, like, shut up. I'm not cute. I just haven't accessed my full power yet. Hold on. But I guess I'll be cute, but I'm not. Like, right, I consciously knew I didn't want to be cute. I was like, I know that I'm circumventing something here. But with this client, it was her actually having this part elevated and illuminated, and having someone witness and say, like, hey, this is where, like, do you feel like this is where your creative ideas are coming from? And this is, and so it was this opportunity to be witnessed in her form of, and her energy would just, oh my gosh, she would just totally shift. It was amazing. From this place that hers wasn't exactly cute, but it was just like, oh, you know, like funny thing. And so the more time you spend with that, and in this case, grounding that, we took that energy and helped her ground it into her physical body, and experience the energy of it as grounded, and experience also where the piece was that was shifting, right? That rock that was shifting. I love that you use the rock analogy, right? Because water will always, you can see divots in mountains, right? Like, people think of rocks as something that can't be moved or changed form, but it's not true. So the energy of water is super powerful. So in this same way of being able to use that as an in to understand the various expressions that she's already active in, and the essence from which it stems. So you might find for yourself, maybe being playful is totally not your thing. Maybe there's a different way that you access this life force energy, because it has these different expressions. Maybe you have a super sharp wit, right? And you have learned to snap back, like you give that clap back like nobody, okay? And as much as that can be a defense and protective mechanism, right? It also takes some creative thought to be able to come back like that, right? And so that sass and that wit is one expression. So how can we move from that place of what your current expression is to understanding the full range of potential expression, because you've become safe with the essence itself. So long answer, but the short of it is to find what is your expression that already actually has some of this life forces as a part of it. And then to allow yourself to be witnessed, that's important, to be witnessed and experiencing release around what's blocking the rest of it.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And really for people to understand that energy is so diverse in how you can access it, how it shows up for you. And I love that of like not necessarily leaning so hard on one aspect of it, but using that as like an entryway into how can I expand this energy, like the playfulness or the wittiness, into that flirtiness or whatever you want to call it, into all other areas or areas that I want to build up and feel more life force energy or creative in that. I absolutely love everything you just said about that. It's so powerful. And for those that would love to get in on the sexy sound healing and connect with you further, where can they find you? What do you got going on? Tell us all the things.
Yes. So I'm thinking about the time when this will air, but that's fine. I'll speak generally. So Sexy Sound Healing, the platform, you can literally join us now. So sexysoundhealing.com. And it is for that we have 2 tiers, but since we are relaunching as this grand opening, this initial release, we're actually allowing everyone in at the same price, regardless of what tier you join. So the difference of tiers, one is the sound healing and the audios itself. And then the super sexy membership option includes live Q&As with me, channeled readings with me, so that we go a little bit deeper in not only your understanding of self, but then also applications of how this applies to different areas of your life. But sexysoundhealing.com is the way. You can also find me at LiSara Official. And if you know you want to join and you're watching this, listening to this, you can go right now into Facebook Messenger, and literally just DM me Sexy Sound Healing, and I'll send you the details. So it's simple and easy, and also so I can say hi to you, because I love the connection.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, I hope everyone flocks your way for this and getting in on this juicy healing. I love it. Thank you so much for being here today. It is my pleasure. And yeah, just getting your medicine and your magic out into the world. And yeah, thank you so much for being here, LiSara.
Of course, my pleasure. Thank you for having me. And thank